We all go through hard times, we all go through storms in life, some storms you can just walk through them, some storms you got to run through. But there are storms that come in our life that we have to hang on with everything we got. Don't let go and don't give up, because I promise you, after every storm, the sun will eventually shine and it's gonna be brighter than you could ever imagine.
We all have those moments where we need a little encouragement to get through our day. Someone to remind us that we are not alone. Find peace. Embrace joy. Seek God daily. Welcome to Jesus Calling Stories of Faith. Our guest is former WWE wrestler and now motivational speaker Marc Mero. Early on, Marc always had dreams of being in professional sports. As he grew his success in the wrestling world as his fighting persona, Johnny B. Bad, Marc achieved his childhood dream of becoming a millionaire. But as he amassed more possessions and his fame was at its height, Marc began to lose hold of the things that were really important, namely his relationship with God, and he tells us how this spun him into drugs and depression.
My name is Marc Mero, and I was born in Buffalo, New York. I grew up a big sports fan and loved sports, and it was my passion growing up: football, hockey, boxing, lacrosse, and eventually became a professional wrestler. I first got introduced to hockey, so I decided to play ice hockey, but the problem was I never skated before. I didn't know how to skate. So it caused a little dilemma there. So what happened was I decided to play goalie. And the one thing about goalie is you learn whether you have good reflexes or not very quickly. And I had really good reflexes, but I couldn't skate. And when I remember trying out for the team, kids would come up from behind me and hit me in the back of the skates, and I'd go flying because I couldn't keep my balance or anything, and kids would laugh and stuff. And unfortunately, I had to play goalie because that's the only position you don't got to really skate around to be halfway decent at, as long as you can make saves. Well, not only did I make saves, but out of 20 games, I had 13 shutouts. And now at the banquet at the end of the year, they announced the MVP for the league, not the team, the league. And they announced this year's 1972 MVP is Marc Mero. And I walked by all the kids that laughed at me, that knocked me down, that said you'll never be anything because you can't skate. And I was MVP. I think it really motivated me. You always want to be a part of things. You always want to be liked. You want to be, a good teammate or a good person. And I think because I wasn't good at first in sports, it made me work that much harder. And so it was a really defining moment in my life, because that summer I learned how to skate. Next year, I became leading scorer in the league, my first year of learning how to skate. So it was the beginning of really going after dreams and goals. My mom and dad had my older sister Jody. I'm the middle child, and I have a younger brother named Joel. I'll never forget. I came from school. I was 8 years old, and I saw my dad's car in the driveway, which was really unusual because my dad didn't come home till like dinner time. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, Dad's home, So I was really excited, and I could run in the house, and my mother was sitting in the living room, but she had her head buried in her hands and she was crying. So I walked up and I said, Mom, what's wrong? And she lifted her head and tears were streaming down her cheeks, and she said, Marc, Daddy's leaving. And I was puzzled. I was like, where's he going? And I ran into my mother and father's bedroom because I heard my dad in there. And he had his back to the door, but he was putting clothes in the suitcase. And I stood in the doorway and I said, Daddy, where are you going? And he was startled. He turned around and he goes, Marc, I want you to know I love you so much. I said, well, where are you going? And he said those words I never forgot. He said, Marc, your mom and dad are no longer going to be together. And I remember just understanding that he was going and not coming back. So I ran over to his suitcase and I grabbed the handles and I fell to my knees and I started begging my father not to leave. I said, Daddy, please don't go. You're my best friend. And he just said something I never forgot. He pulled the suitcase out of my hands and he says, Mark, don't cry. Everything's gonna be okay. And he walked out the door and I was screaming, Daddy, please don't go. You're my best friend. And he was gone. Now fast forward to my dad was in the hospital with lung cancer. And I remember that we got a phone call like 6 in the morning. They said, you need to get here as soon as possible. Your dad needs to see you. I just jumped out of the car and I ran into the hospital, took the elevator up to his floor and ran down the hall. And when I opened the door, I could see my dad wasn't doing good. And I remember just running over and getting in the bed with him. And I scooped my dad in my arms and I was holding him and he just was looking up and I just started crying. And my tears were coming out so fast, they were hitting my father in his face where it looked like my dad was crying. But the weird thing was is I've never seen my father cry. But for the first time, it looked like my dad was crying. And then I remember what he said to me when I was a little boy. I said, Daddy, please don't cry. You're my best friend. Everything's gonna be okay. Don't go. And he died in my arms. And it was so powerful that I never forgot that. When I share that story, many kids I meet or many people I meet that lose a loved one, especially a mom or dad, you know, the pain that you feel is something that's hard to explain to someone unless they've been through it themselves. But to this day, I always say that the memories are worth the pain. When I was a little boy, I have this little book that I still carry around today to my presentations. When I was 10 years old, I'd write my dreams and goals into existence, you know? And, many of them were like, oh, so just aiming bigger than life. I mean, I was gonna find the cure for cancer. I was gonna find, I had all these dreams and goals that I write down as a little boy, you know? And I often tell kids that failure is not aiming high and missing. Failure is aiming too low and hitting. And I just say, dream big, aim high in life, you know. But I write down things like, I want to be a millionaire, I want a black Cadillac, I want a speedboat, all these dreams and goals that I had as a kid, you know, would eventually come true in my life, you know. I'll never forget this. That I was one paycheck away from becoming a millionaire. In other words, when this paycheck hits my account, seven figures, you know what I mean? And I was so excited about it because it was like my whole life I dreamed about this moment, this time I'd be a millionaire. I remember telling my ex-wife and saying, this week we become millionaires. Can you believe it? You know, we're so excited. And the check comes, I deposit the bank and it was like, yes, we're a millionaire. You just dream of like, that's gonna make you happy. And in all reality, it seemed to cause more and more problems. And not only was it the beginning to the end of my marriage, my relationship, and then walking away from Christ and becoming heavily involved in drugs again, and eventually wind end my life. It was Christmas, and I remember not having any place to go. You know, like nowhere to celebrate. I already lost my mother, my father, my brother, my sister. But Christmas Day, I decided to drive to Cocoa Beach, Florida, and I sat under the pier. I just watched the waves roll in and roll out, and I started thinking about my life. You know, I was once rich and famous, and I had millions of dollars. I had it all. And here I am sitting under a pier by myself on Christmas Day. And I remember just thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. I retrieved my handgun, and I had this big walk-in shower. So I decided to go in there and end my life. And as I was standing there, it's like my heart was just pounding. And I saw my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, and I just thought, wow, I just miss them so much. You know, everything I had is gone. And I remember, this is not where I want to go. This is not where I want anyone to go. And I fell to my knees, I poured the gun away from me, and I just started begging God for forgiveness. I kept saying over and over, change who I am. But when you realize it's you that has to change, everything around you starts to change, you know? The tallest I ever stood was that day I got down on my knees, and my whole life changed. Now, like I said, it didn't change just overnight. I never did drugs again. This is the most amazing thing, was I never touched an illegal drug since that day. And have lived just little by little, things start coming back, you know?
We'll be back with more of Mark's story after this brief message about a new version of Jesus Calling just for men. Jesus Calling has a wide array of book styles for all types of readers. Now, there's something new that's designed to appeal to the men in your life. The same beloved Jesus Calling content now comes in a leather-soft, yet durable slate gray cover that is perfect for the man on the go and makes a great gift for dads, uncles, brothers, whoever that special man is in your life. Check out the new gray leather soft edition of Jesus Calling today at JesusCalling.com or wherever Christian books are sold. After Mark's close brush with death, he began to see huge changes in his world. He started a new ministry called Champion of Choices, where Mark speaks to children in schools across the United States and the rest of the globe. But Mark found that opening up about his story wasn't always easy.
I remember the first time I decided to speak to a school. One of the first times, okay? It was Lake Brantley High School. And I got up there and I remember I was like nervous and sweating. I mean, oh gosh. You know, they say that the scary, you know, they list 10 scariest things for a human being. Number 2 is death. You know, number 1 is public speaking. Yes. And I experienced it, right? And I started like, I want everybody to stay away from drugs and, you know, be good. Oh gosh, you know, it was just horrible. Kids were all talking and I just felt terrible, you know. I do the next school and I just said, let me tell my story. Kids are in tears and people are writing to us and we're getting these letters, you changed my life. And we got a letter, you saved my life. And not only from that, from the teachers and faculty were writing me, you know. And then it just snowballed into this amazing ministry. And now we get, gosh, about 100 messages a day. And gosh, it's such a blessing. There's no greater joy than helping another person. You have to relive those moments, which are not fun to go back to, but knowing I'm gonna help someone today. I'm gonna let someone know that they're not alone and how much they matter. And that's what drives me. It drives me to know that God could use my story, my brokenness to help somebody else. Man, we're all broken in some way. You know, we all have stuff. And when you're not afraid to admit you have stuff and you're not perfect and you make mistakes, someone else will go, man, he's just like me, you know? Maybe my life could turn around too. And it does. But at the end of the day, it really is just planting that seed and God watering it. God helping these people or helping someone that heard my story change their life.
As we wrap up our interview with Mark, he shares some insight on how he learned to be less hard on himself in life, and then reads a passage from Jesus Calling that speaks to the idea of letting go of trying to fix ourselves and instead fixing our eyes on God.
I'm guilty of judging myself, you know, a little hard on myself sometimes, you know. And when I stop worrying about, you know, if I'm going to do okay today, or am I going to be able to help somebody, or did the presentation go smoothly, or whatever it is, stop beating myself up and just realize, man, he loves me. You know, he put me on that stage. He put me in this position in life. Stop beating myself up. And I think many people do that. I think many people are guilty of just being too hard on themselves. And when you're hard on yourself, you know, you have to learn to love and value yourself, because you can't give away what you don't have. One of the passages I really resonated with me is from July 13th. I want you to experience the riches of your salvation. the joy of being loved constantly and perfectly. You make a practice of judging yourself based on how you look or behave or feel. If you like what you see in the mirror, you feel a bit more worthy of my love. When things are going smoothly and your performance seems adequate, you find it easier to believe you are my beloved child. When you feel discouraged, you tend to look inward so you can correct whatever is wrong. Instead of trying to fix yourself, fix your gaze on me, the lover of your soul. Rather than using your energy to judge yourself, redirect it to praising me. Remember that I see you clothed in my righteousness, radiant in my perfect love. It's so important to understand that God made you just the way he wanted, and he doesn't make mistakes. So we all have something about us we don't like, but God made you that way. He made you so perfectly in his eyes, and he sees that radiant, perfect love.
To learn more about Marc Mero and his Champion of Choices ministry, please visit thinkpause.org. If you or someone you know may be contemplating suicide, contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or the Crisis Text Line by texting HOME to 741-741. Next time on Jesus Calling Stories of Faith, we speak with Rich Wilkerson Jr., pastor of VOUS Church in Miami, Florida. Rich descends from 4 generations of pastors on both sides of his family, including David Wilkerson, the writer of the classic Christian book, The Cross and the Switchblade. Rich discusses how important our view of God is, not as a judge or scorekeeper, but as a father and a friend.
I think it's really important the way that you view God, because ultimately the way that you view God is going to dictate how you receive and communicate with God. And it wasn't until I was much older that I began to really discover who Jesus was. And I think in discovering who Jesus was, it's fully shifted my paradigm of who God is. That God is a loving Father, that he's not behind the bush waiting and watching as you make a mistake to punish you, but rather he's there that when you do make a mistake, he wants to pick you back up.
Thank you for watching Jesus Calling Stories of Faith. To learn more about how to keep up with our shows bi-monthly and to listen to our weekly podcast, please visit youtube.com/JesusCallingBook to view and hear previous episodes, and to watch a short informational video about how to access all things Jesus Calling on audio and video formats. Plus, learn how to subscribe to our podcast and video channels. Your subscription helps get the word out to more people who will benefit from these inspirational stories of faith.